The concert hall was packed, every seat filled with people whispering and waiting. The stage was bright, the spotlight hot, and the air buzzed with excitement. On stage stood Lila, a quiet woman with messy hair and old clothes. She held a violin, her hands shaking a little. The crowd giggled, and the teachers in the front row smirked. They thought this was a big joke. They had told Lila, a simple cleaner who mopped their school floors, to play violin in front of everyone. They didn't think she could. They wanted to laugh at her. But then, Lila raised the violin to her chin, took a deep breath, and pulled the bow across the strings. The sound that came out was like magic clear, strong, and so beautiful it made the whole room go silent. The teachers' smiles dropped, their eyes went wide. Lila's music filled the hall, twisting and soaring, like a bird flying free. It was perfect. It was impossible. How could she play like this? The crowd gasped, some leaning forward, others holding their breath. Lila's fingers danced on the strings, faster and faster, her face calm but fierce. The teachers looked at each other, their faces pale. They had made a mistake, a big one. And just when the music hit its highest, most heart-pounding note, Lila stopped. She lowered the violin, looked straight at the teachers, and smiled. The crowd roared with cheers, but the teachers sat frozen. What had they done? And what would happen next? Lila wasn't always on a stage. She was a cleaner at Willow Creek Music School, a place where rich kids learned piano and violin from strict teachers. Lila was quiet, always sweeping floors or wiping windows, her head down. She never spoke much, just smiled softly when anyone looked her way. The teachers thought she was simple, maybe even dumb. They never asked her name or wondered about her life. To them, she was just the cleaner. But Lila had a secret, one she kept hidden in her heart. It started a month ago. The school was planning a big concert to show off their best students. The teachers, led by Mr. Grayson, the meanest of them all, were stressed. They wanted everything perfect. One day, while Lila mopped the hallway, she overheard Mr. Grayson talking to the other teachers. "We need something fun for the concert," he said, laughing. "Something to make everyone laugh." That's when Ms. Carter, another teacher, pointed at Lila, who was cleaning nearby. "Why don't we let her play violin?" she said, giggling. "It'll be hilarious. She probably doesn't even know what a violin is." The teachers burst out laughing, thinking it was the best idea ever. They didn't know Lila was listening. They didn't see the way her hands tightened on the mop or the spark in her eyes. Lila didn't say anything. She just kept cleaning. But inside, something changed. She wasn't angry, not exactly. She was determined. The teachers thought they could make fun of her, but Lila had a plan. She wasn't just a cleaner. She had a past, one nobody knew about. When she was a little girl, her mother taught her to play violin. They were poor, and the violin was old and scratched, but Lila loved it. She played every day, her music filling their tiny house with joy. But then, something terrible happened. Her mother got sick and passed away. Lila had to stop playing. She hid her violin away and started working to survive. For years, she didn't touch it. But now, the teacher's cruel joke woke something up inside her. That night, Lila went home to her small apartment. It was dark and cold, but she didn't care. She climbed to the attic where she kept an old wooden box. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was her mother's violin, dusty but still beautiful. She touched the strings, and memories flooded back her mother's smile, her gentle voice saying, "Play from your heart, Lila." She picked it up, and even after all those years, her fingers knew what to do. The music came back, soft at first, then stronger. She played for hours, tears running down her face. She wasn't just practicing, she was remembering who she was. The next day at school, Mr. Grayson called Lila to his office. "You're going to play at the concert," he said, smirking. It'll be fun. Don't mess it up. The other teachers laughed behind him. Lila nodded, her face blank, but inside her heart was racing. She wasn't scared. She was ready. For weeks, she practiced in secret, every night after work. She didn't tell anyone, not even her neighbor, Mrs. Tilly, who always asked why Lila looked so tired. The concert was coming, and Lila knew this was her chance not just to play, but to show them all. The day of the concert arrived. Lila wore her usual plain clothes, not wanting to stand out too soon. Backstage, the students were nervous, tuning their instruments. The teachers ignored Lila, laughing about how she'd embarrass herself. "She'll probably drop the violin," Miss Carter whispered. Lila heard them, but stayed quiet. She held her violin tightly, her heart pounding. When her name was called, the crowd chuckled. They thought this was a joke, just like the teachers did. Lila walked onto the stage, the spotlight blinding her. She could feel everyone staring, waiting for her to fail. But then she played, and everything changed. Cliffhanger. As the crowd cheered, Lila's eyes locked on Mr. Grayson. His face was red, his hands clenched. He stood up, pushing through the crowd, heading backstage. What was he planning? Would he try to stop her? Or was something even bigger about to happen? The crowd's cheers still echoed in Lila's ears as she stood frozen on the stage, her violin lowered. Her eyes followed Mr. Grayson as he stormed backstage, his face twisted with anger. The other teachers whispered to each other, their smirks gone, replaced by nervous glances. Lila's heart raced. She had shocked them all with her music, but something told her this wasn't over. The spotlight felt hotter now, and the crowd's cheers grew quieter as they sensed something was wrong. What was Mr. Grayson going to do? Lila took a shaky step back, clutching her violin like a shield. She wasn't sure what was coming, but she knew she had to stay strong. Back to a few weeks before the concert, Lila's life had been quiet and simple. Every day, she woke up at dawn, put on her worn-out shoes, and walked to Willow Creek Music School. She cleaned classrooms, scrubbed floors, and emptied trash cans while students practiced their instruments. The kids were nice sometimes, saying hi or thanks, but the teachers acted like she was invisible. Mr. Grayson was the worst. He'd snap at her if she missed a spot on the floor or if she was too slow. "Hurry up, cleaner," he'd say, not even looking at her. Miss Carter wasn't much better. She'd giggle with the other teachers, making jokes about Lila's old clothes or how she probably lives in a broom closet. Lila never let it show, but their words hurt. She'd go home, sit in her tiny apartment, and try to forget. But there was one person who saw Lila for more than a cleaner. Mrs. Tilly, her neighbor. Mrs. Tilly was old, with kind eyes, and a habit of bringing Lila homemade cookies. One night, while Lila practiced her violin in the attic, Mrs. Tilly knocked on her door. "What's that beautiful music?" she asked, her eyes wide. Lila froze. She hadn't meant for anyone to hear. She let Mrs. Tilly in and told her about the teacher's cruel plan. Mrs. Tilly's face turned serious. "You show them, Lila," she said. "You play so well they'll eat their words." Lila smiled, but she wasn't sure. Could she really do this? What if she messed up? Mrs. Tilly hugged her and said, "Your heart's in that violin. Let it sing." Those words stuck with Lila, giving her courage. At school, the days before the concert were tense. The teachers kept teasing Lila, dropping hints about her big performance. "Don't break the violin, okay?" Miss Carter said one day, laughing as she walked away. Lila stayed quiet, but every snicker made her more determined. She practiced harder each night, her fingers aching, her eyes burning from lack of sleep. She chose a song her mother used to play, a fast, wild piece called Storm's Dance. It was hard, full of quick notes and big emotions, but Lila knew it was perfect. It would show them she wasn't a joke. The day before the concert, something strange happened. Lila was cleaning the music room when she overheard Mr. Grayson talking to a man in a suit. "This concert has to impress him," Mr. Grayson said. "He's from the National Music Fund. If we do well, we get a huge grant." Lila's heart skipped. So that's why the teachers were so stressed. They needed the concert to be perfect to get money for the school. That's why they thought Lila's performance would be a funny breakaway to make the crowd laugh before the real talent. But Lila wasn't laughing. She saw her chance. If she played well, she could ruin their plan and show them who she was. Back at the concert, the crowd was still buzzing from Lila's performance. She stood on the stage, her moment of triumph fading as she saw Mr. Grayson disappear backstage. The other teachers were whispering, pointing at her. The man in the suit, the one from the National Music Fund, was watching her closely, his pen frozen over his notebook. Lila's stomach twisted. Had she done enough? Or had she just made the teachers angry enough to do something awful? She took a step toward the side of the stage, unsure if she should follow Mr. Grayson or stay put. The crowd started clapping again, calling her name, but Lila barely heard them. Her eyes were on the curtain where Mr. Grayson had gone. Suddenly, a loud crash came from backstage. The crowd gasped, and Lila's heart stopped. She gripped her violin tighter, her mind racing. Was it an accident, or was Mr. Grayson trying to sabotage her? Before she could move, Miss Carter ran onto the stage, her face pale. "Everyone, stay calm," she shouted, but her voice was shaky. The crowd murmured, confused. Lila looked at Miss Carter, then at the curtain. Something was wrong, very wrong. Cliffhanger. Another crash echoed from backstage, louder this time, followed by a shout. It sounded like Mr. Grayson's voice, but it was angry, maybe even scared. Lila took a step toward the curtain, her violin still in her hands. What was happening back there? Was Mr. Grayson coming for her? Or was something else about to turn this concert upside down? The second crash from backstage made Lila's heart pound like a drum. The crowd's cheers turned to worried whispers, and Miss Carter's shaky voice couldn't calm them. Lila stood on the stage, her violin trembling in her hands. She wanted to run backstage to see what Mr. Grayson was doing, but her feet felt glued to the floor. The man in the suit from the National Music Fund was still watching her, his eyes narrow, his pen now scribbling fast. Lila's mind raced. Had Mr. Grayson planned something to ruin her moment, or was something even bigger happening? She took a deep breath, her mother's words echoing in her head. "Play from your heart, Lila." She wasn't going to let fear stop her now. Flashback to the week before the concert. Lila's secret practices were getting harder to hide. She was exhausted, her hands sore from playing, her eyes red from late nights. Mrs. Tilly noticed and brought her tea one evening. "You're working too hard, dear," she said, her voice soft but worried. Lila confessed she was nervous about the concert. "What if they laugh at me?" she whispered. Mrs. Tilly shook her head. "They won't laugh when they hear you. But be careful. Those teachers, they don't like being shown up." Lila nodded, but Mrs. Tilly's warning stuck with her. The teachers weren't just mean, they were proud. If Lila played well, they might not just be embarrassed. They might get angry. At school, things got stranger. Lila caught Mr. Grayson watching her while she cleaned, his eyes cold and sharp. Once, she found him standing near her mop bucket, staring like he was trying to figure her out. "You're really going to play, aren't you?" he asked, his voice low. Lila nodded, keeping her eyes down. He snorted and walked away, but Lila felt a chill. Later, she overheard him talking to Miss Carter. "If she's terrible, it's fine," he said. "But if she's good, we can't let her steal the show. The grant depends on our students, not some cleaner." Lila's stomach twisted. They weren't just joking now. They were scared she might actually be good. The day of the concert, Lila felt the tension everywhere. Backstage, the students were nervous, tuning their instruments, but the teachers were worse. Mr. Grayson snapped at everyone, his face red. Miss Carter kept glancing at Lila, her smile forced. Lila stayed quiet, clutching her violin case. She saw the man in the suit arrive, shaking hands with Mr. Grayson. "Impress me," he told Mr. Grayson, "and the grant is yours." Lila realized then her performance wasn't just about proving herself. It could change everything for the school and for her. Back on the stage, the crashes backstage grew louder. Miss Carter waved her hands, trying to keep the crowd calm, but her eyes kept darting to the curtain. Lila couldn't wait anymore. She stepped toward the side of the stage, her violin still in her hands. The crowd was restless, some standing to see what was happening. Suddenly, Mr. Grayson burst through the curtain, his face red with fury. "Enough!" he shouted, pointing at Lila. "This is a mistake! She's not supposed to be here!" The crowd gasped, and Lila froze. The man in the suit stood up, his notebook falling to the floor. Miss Carter rushed to Mr. Grayson, whispering something, but he pushed her away. "She's a cleaner, not a musician," he yelled. The crowd started murmuring, some booing Mr. Grayson. Lila's heart sank. She felt small, like the quiet cleaner everyone ignored. But then she remembered her mother's violin, the night she practiced, the fire in her heart. She stepped forward, her voice steady. "I'm not just a cleaner," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "And I'm not done playing." The crowd went silent. Mr. Grayson's mouth opened, but no words came out. Lila raised her violin again, her hand steady now. She started playing Storm's Dance, the same wild, beautiful song. The notes flew out, fast and fierce, filling the hall. The crowd leaned forward, caught in the music's spell. Even the man in the suit was watching, his eyes wide. Mr. Grayson's face turned pale. He took a step toward Lila, but Miss Carter grabbed his arm, shaking her head. The music grew louder, more powerful, like a storm breaking free. Lila closed her eyes, letting the music take over. She wasn't playing for the teachers or the grant. She was playing for herself, for her mother, for every time she'd been called just a cleaner. The crowd was on its feet now, clapping and cheering. Even some of the students backstage peeked out, their mouths open in awe. But then, in the middle of a soaring note, the stage lights flickered. A loud snap echoed, and the spotlight above Lila swayed dangerously. The crowd screamed, and Lila's eyes snapped open. The light was shaking, its heavy frame creaking. Mr. Grayson smirked, his eyes glinting with something dark. Had he done this? Was he trying to stop her for good? Cliffhanger. The spotlight swayed wildly, its bolts loosening. Lila kept playing, her music defiant, but her eyes were on the light. It was going to fall right on her. The crowd was panicking, some running for the exits. Mr. Grayson stood still, watching. Would Lila stop and run, or would she keep playing, risking everything? And what had Mr. Grayson done to make this happen? The spotlight creaked louder, its metal frame groaning as it swung above Lila. The crowd's screams filled the hall, some people scrambling toward the exits, others frozen, staring at the stage. Lila's fingers flew across the violin strings, her music cutting through the chaos like a blade. She could stop and run, save herself from the falling light, but something inside her wouldn't let her. This was her moment, her chance to show the world she was more than a cleaner. Her eyes flicked to Mr. Grayson, standing at the edge of the stage, his smirk gone, replaced by a look of shock. Had he meant for this to happen? The thought made Lila's heart burn, but she kept playing, the notes of Storm's Dance rising like a challenge. Back to the day before the concert, Lila's nerves had been fraying. She'd practiced until her fingers bled, the old violin strings digging into her skin. Mrs. Tilly had found her in the attic, her hands wrapped in bandages. "You're pushing too hard," Mrs. Tilly said, her voice gentle but firm. Lila shook her head. "I have to be perfect," she whispered. "They want me to fail." Mrs. Tilly sat beside her, holding her hand. "You're not playing for them, Lila. You're playing for you, for your mama." Those words gave Lila strength, but doubt lingered. What if the teachers did something to stop her? She'd seen Mr. Grayson's cold stares, heard his whispers about the grant. He'd do anything to make sure the students looked better than her. At school that morning, Lila noticed something odd. While cleaning the stage, she saw a worker tightening bolts on the spotlight. Mr. Grayson was there, talking to the worker in a low voice, glancing at Lila. She pretended not to notice, but her stomach twisted. Was he planning something? Later, she found a screwdriver left near the stage, forgotten by the worker. It felt strange, like a clue, but she didn't have time to think about it. She hid it in her cleaning cart, just in case. Now, as the spotlight swayed above her, that memory flashed back. Had Mr. Grayson tampered with it? On stage, the light swung wildly, its cables snapping one by one. Miss Carter screamed, "Lila, run!" But Lila didn't move. The crowd was in chaos. The man in the suit standing now, his face pale. Lila's music grew louder, fiercer, as if daring the light to fall. She poured every ounce of her pain, her mother's death, the teacher's cruelty, her years of being invisible into the song. The notes soared, wild and unstoppable. Some in the crowd stopped running, caught by the music, their eyes locked on Lila. Even the students backstage, who'd once ignored her, were clapping, cheering her on. Then, with a deafening crack, a cable snapped. The spotlight lurched, tilting straight toward Lila. The crowd screamed louder and Miss Carter ran toward her, but Lila didn't flinch. She played faster, her eyes blazing. Mr. Grayson took a step back, his face white. Suddenly, a figure darted from backstage, a young student, Emma, one of the few who'd been kind to Lila. Emma grabbed a rope tied to the light, pulling with all her strength. "Lila, keep going!" she shouted. The light wobbled but didn't fall yet. Lila's heart swelled. Someone believed in her. Cliffhanger. The spotlight hung by a single cable, swaying inches above Lila's head. Emma clung to the rope, her arms shaking, but it wasn't enough. Mr. Grayson shouted something, his voice lost in the chaos, and ran toward the stage controls. Was he trying to help her make things worse? Lila's music never stopped, but her eyes darted to the light. Would it crash down and end everything? Or would she finish her song and change her life forever?